What's up, Vikings Nation? How are we feeling today? I hope you're ready, because something strange is happening in Minnesota, and as a die-hard Vikings fan, I can't ignore it. When the team suddenly postpones an end-of-season press conference, that's not normal, and it immediately raises eyebrows across the league. This was supposed to be the moment we hear directly from Kevin O'Connell and Kwesi Adofo-Mensah about where this team is headed. Instead, silence. No clear explanation. No new date. And when you've followed the Minnesota Vikings long enough, you know silence usually means something big is brewing. So buckle up, because today we're breaking down what this delay really means, why it should matter to every Vikings fan, and how history might be repeating itself in a very familiar and uncomfortable way. Man, this situation instantly took me back to 2022, and if you remember that season, you already feel the tension in your chest. That year ended in heartbreak, losing 31-24 against the Giants in the wild card round, and the defense was the main culprit. The Minnesota Vikings defense that year was painful to watch. 28th in points allowed, 31st in yards allowed. Those numbers don't lie, and they haunted the franchise all offseason. And right at the center of that storm was defensive coordinator Ed Donatel. When the season-ending press conference happened, everyone knew the first question before it was even asked. Reporters wasted no time. The very first thing Kevin O'Connell was asked was whether Ed Donatel would return as defensive coordinator. You could feel the tension in the room immediately. O'Connell's answer wasn't a yes. It wasn't a no. It was careful, measured, and honestly a little frustrating. He talked about evaluations, conversations, and taking time to reflect on every aspect of the football team. As fans, we listened closely, trying to read between the lines. And deep down, most of us already knew what was coming, even if it wasn't being said out loud yet. O'Connell explained that he and Kwesi sat down with players, talked through individual and collective performances, and were now doing the same with the coaching staff. He emphasized responsibility, reflection, and doing what's best for the organization. It all sounded professional. It all sounded reasonable. But it didn't answer the question everyone cared about. Because when a coach avoids a direct answer, reporters smell blood. And that's exactly what happened next. The same question kept coming, just worded differently. Again and again. And by the end of that press conference, you could tell O'Connell was annoyed, maybe even exhausted by it. The next day, boom, Ed Donatel was fired. Just like that. And suddenly, Kevin O'Connell didn't have to explain why anymore. That's a lesson every head coach remembers. And that's why this current delay feels so familiar and so calculated. Fast forward to now, and here we are again. Another season over. Another end-of-season press conference. And suddenly, it's postponed without warning. That doesn't happen unless there are real decisions still being made behind closed doors. This isn't about scheduling conflicts. This is about control of the narrative. Kevin O'Connell learned in 2022 that answering questions before decisions are finalized creates chaos, pressure, and unnecessary drama. For months now, analysts and insiders have been questioning the future of several coaches on this staff. Offensive coordinator Wes Phillips, special teams coordinator Matt Daniels. These conversations haven't come out of nowhere. The Minnesota Vikings offense showed flashes, but also long stretches of inconsistency. Meanwhile, special teams continued to be a sore spot, costing field position and momentum. When fans start asking the same questions analysts are asking, the front office is feeling the heat too. And that's why delaying this press conference actually makes sense, even if it feels eerie and unsettling. By waiting, O'Connell avoids being cornered into non-answers. Instead of saying, "We're evaluating," he can say, "We made this decision and here's why." That's a huge difference. It shifts the conversation from speculation to resolution. From a PR standpoint, it's smart. From a fan perspective, it's nerve-wracking. Because now, every day without that press conference feels like something is about to drop. As a Vikings fan, I'm torn. Part of me respects the patience and the thoughtfulness behind these moves. The other part of me just wants clarity. We've lived through too many seasons where things felt unfinished, unaddressed, or delayed until it was too late. This moment feels like a crossroads. The choices made now will shape the identity of this team going into next season. And whether you love or hate the idea of staff changes, one thing is clear. The Minnesota Vikings are not standing still. The delay tells us that O'Connell is determined not to repeat past mistakes. He wants to speak with authority, not uncertainty. He wants to own the decisions, not dodge the questions. And honestly, that shows growth as a head coach. Still, that doesn't make the wait any easier for fans like us, who live and breathe purple and gold. So I want to know what you think. Do you believe this delay means major coaching changes are coming? Or is this just a cautious move to fine-tune the message? Do you trust Kevin O'Connell to make the right calls this offseason? Or are you worried we're headed for another round of missed opportunities? Drop your thoughts in the comments because Vikings fans always have the best debates. If you enjoyed this breakdown of Minnesota Vikings news, make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and share it with every Vikings fan you know. We're in this together, win or lose, drama or glory. This is Vikings football and the story is far from over. Skol. And let me tell you, this offseason already feels heavier than most. You can sense it in the air, that mix of uncertainty and expectation that only comes when a franchise knows it's close, but not close enough. The Minnesota Vikings aren't rebuilding from scratch. This isn't a teardown. This is about fine margins, about fixing what's broken without destroying what works. And those decisions are always the hardest ones to make. When you look at Kevin O'Connell, you see a young head coach who's learning in real time. He's learning how timing matters, how words matter, and how silence can sometimes be louder than answers. Postponing this press conference isn't weakness. It's strategy. It's control. It's making sure when he finally steps behind that podium, he owns the room. And that tells me he understands exactly how big this moment is. For Kwesi Adofo-Mensah, this is just as critical. Roster construction, coaching alignment, long-term vision, it all has to connect. You can't preach collaboration and patience, then rush decisions for the sake of optics. This front office believes in process. Sometimes that drives fans crazy, but it also prevents panic moves that haunt franchises for years. The scary part is that patience doesn't guarantee success. It just gives you a better chance. And Vikings fans know better than anyone that chances don't always turn into championships. Still, when I look at this situation, I don't see chaos. I see deliberation. I see a coach who doesn't want to sit there dodging questions like he did in 2022. I see someone who wants to say, here's what we did, here's why we did it, and here's where we're going. That matters, especially in a market that lives and dies with every headline. Now the real question becomes this. Are we about to hear about firings, reassignments, or quiet extensions that nobody expected? Because silence before a press conference almost always means news is coming. Good news or bad news depends on your perspective. As fans, we want accountability. We want honesty. But most of all, we want progress. We want to believe that next season won't end with the same conversations, the same frustrations, the same what-ifs. This delay feels like the Minnesota Vikings standing at a mirror, taking one last look before deciding what needs to change. And honestly, that's both terrifying and exciting. Because if they get it right, this could be the turning point. If they get it wrong, it's another year lost in the middle. That's why this moment matters so much more than a simple press conference date. It's about direction. It's about trust. It's about whether this leadership group can take the next step. So don't tune out. Don't assume nothing is happening just because nothing's been said yet. Sometimes the biggest moves are made when no one's talking. And when Kevin O'Connell finally steps up to that microphone, every word is going to matter. I'll be right here breaking it all down with you, reacting in real time, and calling it exactly how it is, just like a true Vikings fan should. If you're riding with the Minnesota Vikings through every high and low, smash that like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you don't miss any Minnesota Vikings news. Share this with your Vikings friends, jump into the comments, and let your voice be heard. No matter what happens next, one thing never changes. We bleed purple. We believe. And we're always ready for the next chapter. Skol Vikings!